Okay, if anyone has questions, go ahead and just raise your hand, and I'll grab you at the most opportune time. We're gonna go through and let everybody introduce themselves, and we'll go from there. So, you're first.
My name is Michael Witham. I am the co-owner of the open source project. It's in Tempe, 1415 East University. We've been open since middle of April. We're just kind of building our community and waiting for students to come back with any issues so we can try to capitalize on these folks.
I'm Austin King. I own and operate Union Workspace in Central Phoenix, and it's been just about a year.
My name is Jeff Rose. I'm the co-founder of Jivemind. It's a cooperative music labs concept that's been in the works for the last year plus. We're currently in downtown Phoenix. Doors aren't quite open yet, and we're in the process of transitioning over to a more hospitable location in the city, downtown London.
Hi, I'm Fred Von Graf. I'm founder of LaunchSpot. We are in Broadway 52nd in Tempe. Have a co-working space, an incubator, collaborative space, about 14,000 square feet of space there, including raised floor data center, and we've got 6 companies in there currently, and we open the doors to the public next Monday.
I'm Derek Neighbors. I'm a human here at Gangplank, just trying to help other people find their humanity.
Angelo, Coppola. I'm one of 5 principals of AZ Disruptors. We are an incubator/accelerator located in Scottsdale. We just recently did a pitch day, and we've got a couple of new companies running for our first class right now.
Workspace encompasses a lot of different type of setups, and I know that each of these guys have their unique way of operating. So if you could go through and give us a little bit of an overview about how a typical setup works, who funds it, how people get in, that type of thing, that would be awesome. Let's go ahead and start with you, because you're next.
Sound good? Yeah, so it's pretty cool. AZ Disruptors is located right inside of the same building where Axosoft and TransferBigFiles.com run out of. And we just had quite a bit of extra space and decided to run the incubator through there. It's not quite like this in that, it's an incubator where we select companies to participate. And like I said, we've got 2 running through right now. The funding came directly from the 5 principals. And as part of what we do, we provide the companies that run through our program with $20,000 worth of seed money, and then some other services that are based around it as well.
So our model is pretty open. We started originally as an incubator operating out of abundance from Integrum, sharing some office space, running some incubation programs. And we realized that Arizona deserved more, that there was a lot deeper problems than just funding. And so we started to play around with various ideas about how to raise the bar around collaboration and around getting people to get back in touch with their creative side and how to get the most out of people. And from that, it's kind of grown into something that's a little bit undescribable in 45 seconds, but I'll just say our funding happens from a number of sources, largely from benefactors and from government organizations that understand that the world of economic development is radically changing, and that a model that looks much more like a petri dish is something that looks more sustainable than the company of yesterday. And so they're kind of investing in experimenting with the future of what business looks like for their particular municipalities.
So we are self-funded, privately funded, no taxpayer money or external sources have come into LaunchSpot. What was the question again? What do you want to know here?
Yeah, how does it work? Like if I...
Okay. Yeah. So
how would I benefit from it?
Absolutely. So we have, since we used our own money, we're looking at ways to recoup that money, and obviously we have tiers of service. There's free, you can just come in and work. And then there's locking offices, dedicated cubes, conference rooms. We have a 50-person training room you can use. We have other training rooms. We of course have the data center, so it has 2 fiber loops coming into it. So if your startup needs any more than that, you're Google. But you know, it pretty much any of those tiers of service beyond the free, we upcharge to get our, recoup our money. We put plenty in, so we'd like to get it back. As far as the space itself, we are using a membership model, but membership is free. And the reason we do that is when someone comes in, we know who's there, when they're there. If you want, we can set you up with hit cards. We put a Cisco infrastructure in the entire place, so everything is solid from the wireless to the ports. You can get static IPs, whatever you need. Companies are in there today. We have 6 companies. Some are doing very well. We're talking like 30, 40 million a year. Others are very much a startup. And so we have the whole gamut of companies coming in and working together and being in a collaborative space. And with that, we also have the same area. You're going to have other people coming in like yourselves that can just come work there for free and collaborate. So it's a co-working, and then the incubation side we haven't started. We want to get our act together on the co-working, honestly, and then move into the incubation. But we have enough private funding set aside for several years of incubation, and we'll do a similar thing. We've been talking with AZ Disruptors and whoever will talk to us.
So Jivemind, when you're talking about workspace, whether it's music or just people, different companies working together, kind of the idea is bringing people together, connecting them with resources, opportunities to expand on their ideas, all that fun stuff. So on the music side, the concept was inspired by my struggles, but also, hundreds of thousands of other musicians' struggles of just getting access to good equipment, instruments. If you live in an apartment or a townhouse or something with shared walls and you play drums or something like that, you can't just practice in your own home. Your parents don't want to listen to you, neighbors, everyone wants to hear a drum solo, they don't want to hear you practice your drums. So, and just in Phoenix, just connecting with other musicians is actually quite challenging. It's strange. There's a lot of passionate, talented people out here, but there's just not a central location for that to happen. That's kind of the background on our concept. So we're looking to create a central location where people can connect and get access to all kinds of instruments, rehearsal space, education. So that's a 30,000 foot view of the concept. It's we have private funding behind us. Once it's up and running, we'll have a recording studio, rehearsal space, workshops. We'll even have some food and drink, we'll do special events, concerts around town. So, there'll be a membership model for more goal-oriented musicians. If you're looking to, complete in like a 12-track album or something, we will put together a membership that consists of rehearsal time and workshop time and actual time in the studio. So when it comes time to record, you'll be in a much better position to do that. So there's memberships that are goal-oriented. People pay monthly fees for that. You could walk in and just book hourly rehearsal time. You could hang out for free and have some coffee. Different ways to monetize it depending on the needs of the user.
My concept was kind of just organically evolved. I kind of thought like this Sam Fox guy, he opens restaurants and people go goo gaga over his concepts, and they rush there and they want to try it and send your wife to the bathroom. This is what the bathroom looks like, and you're there for an hour and $50-$75 later you leave. And I kind of thought, if you're going to go there for an hour, spend good money, get so interested in these concepts, you're going to spend half your day or half your wake hours, at your office. So I felt your office doesn't need to be boring and mundane and the typical North Scottsdale office complex that's, just like one default, there's plop down all over the place and they all look the same. So I kind of thought, well, why can't you create an office concept? And they can all be individual, they can all have their own personality, some can be more suite focused, some can be more open, co-work, collaborative space focused, creative community heavy, artist community heavy, whatever, but you could kind of do these little concepts all over town where needed. So I was working on that for a while, was talking about going into one of the freestanding buildings on Central by Lux, had a business partner, had renderings, and had hired a contractor. We'd really gone a long ways, and once it came down to the numbers, it really just wasn't going to pencil out. And that's where it kind of fell apart. Fortunately, I had a relationship with a property owner, the principles of a modern architecture home builder. And the recession creates opportunity, and they had some space open in their building. And I had floated the idea to them for creative feedback, and they kind of called out of the blue after I didn't think it was going to work out. And they called out of the blue and said, hey, come down, let's talk about our second floor. So I ended up leasing the second floor of their building, and that's kind of where everything started. So my concept's just pretty much a straightforward co-working space, just in a really unique architectural environment, a really unique building. That's kind of a nutshell.
So the open source project was inspired by, I read a book, Rise of the Creative Class from Richard Florida, and basically that got my mind turning about bringing in people from the creative class, from designers, developers, musicians, artists, and allowing them to hang out in the same room. And that's kind of what inspired the idea. We make a lot of our money to actually sustain the operations through selling coffee. And I think primarily that's a good glue for these types of people. And it also helps pay the bills. But what we've seen, I think what we've seen is that it's become kind of this hodgepodge for just about everything. We have people that come in and, people who have businesses that'll have their meetings there. We have freelance developers that'll come in and use it. We'll have musicians that'll come in the evening, play jams and riffs and things. I think ideally it is a co-work space that's defined by the people that are in it, and we try to keep it kind of this evolving nebulous, just so it's not defined in one of those boxes, so everyone can participate in it.
Co+Hoots is a co-working space in downtown Phoenix. We started with the idea that it would house a range of creatives. So just like OSP Tempe, we would be marketing towards the creative class. We have a range of people. So we do have designers, web designers, developers, photographers, PR people, and we've just kind of reached out a little further and just got a real estate developer involved. So our model is constantly changing, but initially it started out as the idea of a co-op of creatives that share space, that work off of each other, that get inspired by each other in a space that's inspiring. So that's what we are. We're a little different because we're a paid model. Each of our members pay a desk rate or several desk rates, and they get a 24/7 access. And then we also have a co-working open area where people can just drop in, come in for the day between our open hours, and just work in the space.
Most workspaces in cities evolve because creative professionals need a place to work together, and they don't want to work from their homes all the time. But part of this is also people want to have a community that's beyond just their actual colleagues. So, and anyone can raise your hand on this one. Have you guys found difficulty in like finding a community and how to build one? Is that something that you're fine with it, apparently? So we'll go with Jenny first. So yeah, talk about community and how and what it takes to build that, and if it's better off building community first or the space first, or vice versa.
I definitely think that you need to have a community first, and you build that space for that community. We started kind of just running, and we didn't know what to expect when we started. I honestly didn't know if there was a huge community of followers for co-working until I reached out to a few people, Matt, Tony, and the people that I work with regularly, and they were the ones that actually pushed me to move forward with this and say that, there is a huge support for this. And we've seen it. The first couple of months, it was just 4 of us in one giant workspace about this size. Now at a year, we're obviously not as big as Gangplank, but we're full on our space and we have a wait list, and so we're getting to a point where we can see that there is a community, and we built that space around the community of creative people that want to work in a space. So we constantly ask them, how can we better this space?
Anyone else talk about building communities? You said it was easy, or you didn't have to worry about
Sure,
it?
yeah. So we built the space and provided the opportunity, and without marketing, we already filled our locking offices. There was a vacuum, and that we, I guess I thought you knew there was a need for it. I just didn't realize how much of a need there was.
You can't really do market research and stuff like that, right?
We can talk about it. I've met with other people that are doing it. I kind of saw what others were doing, but part of it was we weren't really trying to model after what other people were doing. We were trying to, in a selfish way, I just wanted to, work with other brilliant people. So I wanted to put a space in place where I could do that, and that was my selfish motivations. But it's turned out to be a really big vacuum where, without really doing much more than mentioning it a couple times that this is what we're doing, we've already filled all the offices.
A lot of workspaces are started as some sort of altruistic end. Obviously, Derek talked about that earlier, about helping the greater community. Can you talk about how any of the businesses that you have are and what they do to help local economies or local people?
So I don't know if I would describe it as necessarily altruistic at all, but
It doesn't have
because
to be charitable.
Sure,
but
sure.
It's helping people around the community.
the companies that we invited in are both basically providing services to. Logic is one that's providing a service to companies that would like to blog, basically, and bring in sort of an in-house blog that looks a lot like their existing CSS templates on their websites and that kind of thing. Sorry.
To bring it back, does everyone who works in your place, they live in the area, right? I mean, you're not
Absolutely.
You're not taking some California company and they're not moving here to.
Yeah, that was definitely one of our goals with AZ Disruptors, was to make this a very local economy type deal. Yeah, we were looking for local entrepreneurs who sort of needed a kickstart to get their companies going. So in that sense, it's helping out the economy locally here. That's it. Yeah.
The incubators obviously have an end goal in sight. I mean, you want to start a company, you want to be profitable, hopefully in a certain amount of time. For the other people that are more of an ongoing process, let's say a music type thing, how do you determine success? How do you know you're doing things correctly? Besides being able to pay rent, because obviously that's a big one. What's a success in your mind?
What's success in our mind? Paying rent would be nice. It's been quite altruistic in the beginning. I mean, we know there's a longing. It's in the layout of this place. I mean, everything is scattered. There's space upon space between just people, and there's lots of venues around. There's music stores. There's all this. It's just scattered around. So I mean, the idea is to just bring it all together. And success in our mind is when your average Joe musician who really didn't have access to a bass guitar or something can really flourish on the instrument, connect with other musicians.
So that's success. You're providing tools for people who don't already have them, but have a talent.
Yeah, and not just the tools, but I mean the support, whatever it takes.
First platinum album.
Yeah, that's right. First platinum.
Culture is a big thing for me to these. I'm sure you guys can walk into each of your facilities and see what the culture really entails, what type of people you usually work out of there. Can you build culture? And I'm going to go to Derek for this one, because I know he's going to want to talk about it. Can you build culture, or do you have to adapt to what's already there? And how does that work long term?
Absolutely think you can build culture. However, I think you are sometimes constrained by the environment that is around you. So I think that this is something that we learned pretty early on with Gangplank is sometimes in order to build culture, you have to start diving into things that maybe were not on your forefront mind because you actually have to change your environment. So for us, people say, why are you delving into music? Why are you delving into education? Why are you delving into post-secondary education? And it's because the culture that we are trying to breed is currently constrained by those elements of environment around us. And so we have to encourage those environments to change in order for the culture that we're trying to see to really take root. And so, I would say it's, about, sometimes you have to cultivate before you plant and before you can harvest. And I think that if you're into culture building, you have to be in for the long term. I mean, if you're looking to harvest right away, culture, it's not going to happen. It takes time.
There's also a certain amount of vetting that goes into letting new people in the space. For you guys that are more co-work oriented, where you have very different people who don't often work together on things, how do you make sure that someone's coming in is a right fit for the space? Because I know in a lot of spaces you can't hide from anybody. So how do you is there an interview process? Is there some sort of research that you do? Is there a probationary period to see if they fit in? And one of the three of you guys can kind of grab this.
I do utilize an application. My space it's pretty open. No doors, nowhere to really hide. If you're a loud talker or have sensitive paperwork, it's probably not a good fit for your business. So I always meet people there first, walk them around, the kind of the tour thing, answer any questions, and ask a lot of questions about their business. I'm always really interested, like, what type of businesses do these places attract?
Bruce, do you involve the existing people in that process at all?
I recently did. I had a guy come, he and his partner, real high energy people. They were in sales and said, I've got 4 other people. There'll be 5 of us, and I'm high energy. And the people there were hearing and listening. And he's like, my clients love it because I sell and I got this energy. And he was asking, like, can I put up a partition or something for him? And I was just thinking, I don't know if this is going to work. So when he left, I asked one of the other guys, like, hey, did you hear that? What'd you think? And he was real cool about it, but it wasn't going to be an appropriate fit. So I do the landlord. I take the application. My space is kind of shared. The landlord is on the 3rd floor of the building, and the conference room is on the 2nd floor, which is where Union Workspace is. So there is some overlap, and due to that, their applications are sent to the landlord, so you can check it out too.
Do you guys have anything different that you?
No, we're
that you
open
do?
to everyone, so there's no application.
We have a little bit. We have just a week we ask everybody to do a week of drop-ins just for everyone to get to know each other before we actually hand a key and an alarm code. Because it's just like renting a room in a house. You're going to be around all these people. Both sides need to know that who you are and make sure that it makes sense. Our space is kind of an interesting space, so there's always something, like there's a gym next door, so there's music blaring, and we want them to experience all that before they decide to jump on.
A lot of the problems in running any of these spaces is money, always. Has anyone been able to make co-working or co-op or collaborative a full-time job just managing the building itself? Or is that something you need to be a landowner, building owner, that type of thing? Has anyone been able to do that? And what are some of the challenges if you can't? I mean, how do you run your own business at the same time running this huge facility for everybody else? Anybody want to grab this one? Really, no one does it?
I run my design studio out of Co+Hoots as well, so I'm always balancing the two. In the beginning, it was really tough because running a co-working space, it is a full-time job, even if you don't want to admit to it. So we've gotten to the point now where we're not. I don't think I'd ever want to be doing it full-time. I love talking to people, but I still love my own business. Eventually, we'd like to get to a point where we can hire somebody to manage everything. And we're at a point where we are making money now, just based on being full. And that money's going to go back into the space first before we go into hiring somebody, because it's a co-op. Everybody pitches in. It's almost self-sufficient right now. It'd be nice to have somebody there all the time to manage, but the first priority is upgrading the space and making sure everybody's happy and the community's there.
There's a lot of not public talk about competition between different spaces. About one person's idea is better, one team is better. Is that helpful or hurtful to have that type of thing going? If open source Tempe got into kind of a tiff with you guys over at AZ Disruptors, do you think that makes you better to get into those type of competition type things? Or is it just a detriment to everybody's time because the fighting really isn't worth it? You guys, anyone want to talk about starting arguments? You guys are doing a good job.
I mean, I think it's just so early on. Like, are all of us under a year old or right around a year old?
We're 4 years old.
Except for Gangplank. So, I mean, it would probably, I would say, be a detriment for us to start, battling with each other. And in fact, this is the first time all of us, I think, have been together in one place. And we would probably benefit a heck of a lot more from maybe looking at different ways that we could collaborate with each other.
So I would say it's an extreme disservice if we don't have healthy discord among spaces and among ideas. I think that if you look at the best things in life, they came from people who had extremely variant opinions, who learned how to find the common grounds of DNA about the best things about each of the ideas and assemble them into a new idea. I think the problem that is hurtful is that people are not entering into discussion. Instead, it's behind the scenes, bad mouthing, passive aggressive, which I think doesn't do anybody any good. Doesn't do any of the spaces any good. Doesn't do any of the people doing it any good. But I do think that healthy discussion is good. Meaning, diverse ideas are important.
No, I completely agree. And I reached out to AZ Disruptors when I heard about them, and we established a relationship, and they're open to work with anyone. So, if you guys want to come badmouth me, come on down. We'll talk. Yeah.
F on Graf on Twitter if you want
Thanks,
to talk about it. A lot of times there is either a singular leader or a group of people that establish themselves as the guys that are the guys or girls that know more or more established or more helpful. Have you guys done anything to really foster that type of idea? I mean, I know everyone's equal, I get that, but there's always going to be people who put in more work. So is there any way you guys have done to establish someone who's a little bit more knowledgeable, a little bit more access than somebody else?
Are you talking about either within
You're talking about within our own space or as a community?
either one?
Well, I think as a community, I know without Gangplank starting and doing, having this and growing from their own spot into this one and seeing the success of it, and also just on the fringes hearing what types of activities and what types of community that they're building. That's definitely been an inspiration for me in wanting to do something that was similar along those lines. But I'm always had my ears open to what other spaces are doing. Our model is much different, so an investment model or having anchor companies that are kind of holding the fort down is something that isn't relevant to what we do. But whatever the community is doing, we should all be interested in what each other are doing, kind of learning from it.
You do. Oh, yeah. That's what it is. Yeah, okay. Generally, yes.
Questions from the audience at all so far? Oh, go ahead.
Can you please repeat the question, Tyler?
Yes. Okay, so I'm curious as to there's a challenge of getting people in the space, not only working but working together, and there's such potential there to get someone who's working on their product to start showing it to other people. We'll give them feedback, and how do you get that dialogue going?
Question is how to foster collaboration within between different companies or groups in spaces.
Like that?
So this will sound like a funny answer, but I'm being pretty serious, and that's alcohol is a serious social lubricant. I have found that if you need to crack the ice, it's amazing what a beer or two will do to people to start to find a little bit of comfort in talking about the things they're doing, and opening up a little bit.
Also, just as setting up the opportunity to have that alcohol, make a mixer, do something that's going to bring people in. And I agree, that's how we started. I mean, we had our hard cider and alcohol. See it here, Ed, you're still here. The opportunity is just you need to establish the environment and then provide the right, we'll say, tools.
Katie.
So I know that Jenny, you've gone to other co-working spaces in other cities. I'm sure some of you guys have traveled on business. How do you think what we're doing here in the state compares to what you've seen elsewhere?
Doctor, repeat that question.
I think I yelled it enough. The camera got me, so you're good.
Anybody want to grab that and just travel around?
You know, I've been to quite a few. I think a lot of it's similar. I think one of the things that's a little bit interesting to me is I think probably per capita or per square mile, we probably have more spaces than most else, even the bigger cities. So I'm interested to see what sustainability for all the spaces looks like long term. But I think a diversity of models is represented, and I've seen a diversity of models, you know, kind of out in the wild. I think that you know, everybody here is doing a good job of you know, representing the model that they're putting forward.
Location is always important, obviously, for this type of stuff. You want to have it accessible by your customers. In Arizona, that just means a lot of parking, usually. But did you guys take any real special care in determining exactly where you want to be, or was it more of, we need a nice space, it has to be in kind of a certain area, and it has to be affordable, or what was the process with that?
So I was initially looking at, I wanted to be in the Tempe area for, again, selfish reasons, because it's close to my house. So I was looking for places around there. I thought there was good opportunity with the university and other businesses that are down there. But it really came down to being close to like freeway access. We have, you know, hotels, restaurants, things that people are going to want to do besides just work there. So that's...
Do you have restaurants around there?
We're actually putting one into the building.
Okay, you're putting a cafeteria there.
Yeah, we're going to have
Short order.
we're going to have breakfast buzzes and things like that.
Right.
So for us, we were definitely very intentional. Not the first time, not the second time, but the third time we moved, we were extremely intentional about looking for a city that was willing to invest in building the culture that we thought was necessary. That we thought that there was a lot of physical infrastructure and civic infrastructure that needed to happen to obtain our goals. So we were very, very specific about targeting where we went. And so we had several people, several areas on the docket, and it really came down to people. And I think that anybody doing a space, spaces are about people. And so, you know, more than anything, be aware of people when you go to build a space.
Because a lot of your customers are likely creative type people who work from home or who work remotely. How important is layout and design of the space to attracting different types of people? I know yours, obviously, that's your main drawing point. But is it something that people actually say, I want to work in a cool space, and so that's why I come here? The people aren't quite as important, or is it more of a balance? Anyone want to grab that?
Yeah, I have actually I have 3 members at the moment and a 4th coming on board who are healthcare consultants. So the space is architectural. It's perfect for an architect, landscape architect. That was what the building was designed for. But now I find, you know, almost half of my members are healthcare consultants.
Is that just quick? I mean, that's just...
Yes, the 3 of them came in one chunk with the same company. The common bond was that the landlord, the home builder, had built a house for one of their friends. They went to the friend about to be a commercial real estate agent to find the space. He said, "Hey, let me show you this space." That's how it started. And then they had a colleague over for a presentation or a meeting, and she said, "Wow, this is great space. I love this."
So it was the layout. I mean, that really attracted them.
That's what attracted her. She'd been working at home and was just kind of getting tired of at home and thinking of pushing the business forward. So that's how she came.
Our space is a little bit of both. There's a lot of great chemistry between the people, but our space was built because it's one giant open room and everything's really flexible, and that's the main reason for that is that we want to do several things with it. We want to be able to open it up completely for events. We want to be able to do art showings or have a startup weekend there, you know, and pile all the tables together. So everything is very light and easy to move, and most everything is on wheels, so we can reconfigure the entire space if we wanted to. When we first started out, like the first year, well, I guess we won't remember for you. The first couple months, every 2 weeks we would switch the entire space around. So you would come in one day and come in another day, and everything would be completely different. And I think that was exciting for our people. It gave you something to work towards. It was just inspiring for you to come in and do some work different every day.
Did you hear that, everybody? Wheels on desks.
We prefer the hard labor.
I got a question here and then Struggle.
Sure. Could you guys talk a little bit about the mix of companies and people so I guess for the incubators, maybe it's a little bit different, but how much of the makeup is companies that are kind of stable, maybe small 2 or 3 people that have been making money for a little while versus, people with a dream who are coming in and are 1 or 2 people versus those who are just independent consultants? And do you see ideas sort of move and change, and do people that come in as 2 separate companies kind of get to know each other and link up? Have you ever seen something like that?
Question is the relationship between small companies and, let's say, freelancers in the space and how they interact. We may want to grab. I think you're the.
So we have a pretty good mix. I think we've had companies as big as 20 people inside of Gangplank before, down to individual companies as anchors. And I would say, depending on the given day, it could be a half-half split in here, that half the people in here are kind of drop-in co-workers that aren't anchors, and half the people in here are anchors, or it could be 90% are anchors and there's only 2 or 3 kind of co-workers dropping in. Absolutely, we've seen things shifted and moved. I know of at least 2, if not 3 occasions, just that I know of, where people from companies or independent companies have merged to create a new company, whether it be for a one-time piece of work or whether it be for that they basically abandoned their original companies and had moved forward starting another company.
Struggle.
Between all of you guys on the panel, can you name one thing you think somebody else could help you with? Like collaborate between the spaces. Like, is it introductions? Is it desks? Is it fiber hookup? Whatever. Like, how do you think you guys can see each other working together?
Struggle wants to know how one thing that each of you could ask from another person in here that could make you guys better.
I'll pay anybody on here $100 if it takes Struggle for a month.
I may have a closet.
One thing that I'm open to is, we do have a membership model and it's free, but there's tiers of service, so we could extend discounts to any other co-working space if they want to do that. We're completely open to working with anyone.
For more traffic, I guess, basically.
No, I don't know. We haven't opened yet. I can't answer that, but I'm saying that the reality is we're open to working with anyone, whatever they think of. So.
You will abandon the door if they walk into the game.
You guys have any?
I think something that the OSB can provide is just like we have a lot of art and music influence and have outreaches to a lot of the local artists in Tempe. So I think anything that has to do with mixers or community events or things that are based in Tempe or around ASU, I think we have a pretty big influence in that we can help out with.
Yeah, but that's what you can do for them. I want to know what you guys need.
Clarify the question.
we need
What's something that you could use from someone else you need help with? Like maybe Jenny needs help with throwing events. I don't know. Getting something.
You don't get it if you don't ask.
Yeah.
I'm already picking up a bit just by sitting here listening to everybody, but I would say my space, Union Workspace, can sometimes lack like the culture. And I think that's due to I have one user who's largely a night user. I have somebody who largely uses the space for kind of some desperate bill pay. So sometimes you'll come in and there'll be 4 or 5 people there, and other times you'll come in and it's just you or another. So I think sometimes the sporadic use of some of my members can kind of, the space itself is great. Then you walk in and there's
You just need
a
more
couple
of a
people.
foundation of regular.
More 9 to 5s, more 9 to 5 and outgoing people would be great.
A lot of us are in our initial stages, so down the road, hopefully we all can work with one another and add value, where we specialize. when appropriate, whenever those opportunities come up. I will say I've met with I've been to Co+Hoots, I've been Open Source Project, I haven't been your spot, I've been to Gangplank, haven't been your guys' spots, but when we went over to Open Source Project, we just simply talked with them, told them what we wanted to do, and I remember the conversation. I mean, he shared with us how they got their space open, and a lot of times you just got to do it by the bootstraps, but support and advice. I mean, they really helped us on a few things. So.
I need somebody to help me make barn doors.
There you go. Barn door.
For a conference room. I don't care. Why? We have conference room space. It's all open space and it goes up, but not all the way to the ceiling. So we just need a way to kind of muffle the sound a little bit. And we have the railings or whatever you need for it. We just need to actually make the doors themselves.
I'll answer for Derek. We need sound dampening in the podcast room. There's a question back there, Nicole.
Yeah, I've been to Co+Hoots and I went to their anniversary party. It was tons of fun if you guys can go there. And I've been to this space. So just kind of getting educated on these types of spaces is really exciting, in the creative world. So I was just kind of curious. I think it's kind of piggybacking on a few of the past questions just now. But do you find that there is more of a collaborative type of effort within the different, units of people that are coming? And if so, do you guys have things like an idea board or maybe visual check-ins? I mean, people aren't going to be going there to specifically connect to other companies, but there are those opportunities to maybe grab at ideas that maybe was present earlier in the day, but then somebody else checks them later. So I was kind of curious if that's an effort that any of you guys strive to do or have.
Yeah, so collaboration between companies. She's curious if there's any collaboration between, or any sort of concerted effort to make that happen. I know the incubators wouldn't seem like they would do that as much because they're very focused on their own thing, but
it's sort of not like the scope of this, or with a huge number of companies coming in to work together. But what we have found is that the two companies running through our first class, they work in the same room, and they have been actually collaborating. It was, yeah. The way we designed the workspace was to kind of throw them all together, and they're at very similar stages, so they're benefiting quite a bit from being there together. But again, it's sort of different. I don't know if that was the intention of the question, but that's what we found in our space.
So I would say that I don't know if the question is targeted, to the companies working within the space, or kind of, to get them collaborating with each other, or if it's more trying to get ideation to happen in a collaborative fashion.
It's more the idea base, and if so, do you guys have physical efforts? I'm a super visual person, so I like idea boards. I like seeing who's there and seeing who I can collaborate with or help with.
We've done a lot on trying to get awareness internally, and hope that the collaboration from the ideation perspective kind of falls out of that. I think it's really, really hard from an idea perspective, because people, you have to have a fair amount of trust to share your ideas, whether that be because you're afraid somebody else might just take them and run with them, or whether you're afraid that somebody just might laugh their ass off if they really heard your ideas. Either way, it involves a certain amount of trust, so I think it's very difficult in a space that has a variety of people kind of coming in and out of it to kind of put ideas too publicly before they're really starting to be formed. I think once they start to get formed, I think there's a lot of good things that happen where people are able to share those ideas.
Question?
Kind of a question, maybe a suggestion, I guess, is I'm just going to come out and say it, that collaboration sucks sometimes. Trying to get 13 people to agree on one thing is just impossible.
That's more compromise than collaboration.
Yeah, and my thought is money also sucks. Money's
Not having money sucks.
Money is what gets you to one place. It's really, it's just the place between your work and how you get there. And my thought is if we want a healthy market of collaboration or whatever it is, tier. Why don't we set up some sort of barter market where you can go online and say, I need this, and I can do this for you. That way, there's a competitive bidding process, and people end up exchanging. The person that needs the most will also get the most in return.
The question was if we're going to set up some sort of bartering system in between the workspaces to keep the work internal, I guess?
We start barn doors.
So I think there's a lot of barter things online. I think some of what you're really driving at, and I'll steal a quote that Dave likes to use by Anton St. Debris, and I think if you want people to sail, don't whip them to kind of build the boat. Teach them to yearn for the sea, and I think that's a large part of what our problems are. Is we don't hit people where it matters. We don't motivate them towards a dream of a better future. Instead, we try to get them to fill a seat in a spot, or to play in a concert in an event, or to donate an item. And those things by themselves are not motivating enough for people to get engaged. And I think that if you get people engaged and you hit them where their passion is, you hit them where their hope is, you hit them where their dreams are, you get them to yearn for something, you'll be amazed how the money shows up, you'll be amazed how the people show up, and you'll be amazed how people really start to collaborate. Because when people are going towards the same vision and the same goal, it's amazing how much they'll shed all the little bullshit that keeps them from collaborating.
Daniel Pink has a good book named Drive that has talks about a lot of motivations. If you guys haven't read it, it's great. Last question here.
So Derek just mentioned, about how we need to dream for a better future and all of that. So I think what you guys are all trying to do is challenge the current landscape of business and how businesses operate. Looking forward to the future at the next generation, I know Gangplank involves children with like a journalism thing, Legos, stuff like that. If we're dreaming for a better future, we have to keep kids in mind. What are your spaces doing to incorporate kids, and are they kid-friendly, that sort of thing? What are you guys doing to make the next generation get involved with it, or to help them with that?
The question is, what about the children?
We have trouble.
Hey, that's two. One more, you're done.
So we're working with educational institutions to see how we can collaborate with them and provide opportunities for, maybe it's not at the age that you're discussing, but at least university level, or K through 12, going from maybe the 8 through 12 section thereof, where we can actually bring people in and do something. So yeah, we're actively looking at working with education and how we can assist.
I can't do this one in 45 seconds because I'm too passionate about it. But I'll say my dream involves kids working out of Gangplank right alongside adults, and that we completely blur the lines of how we think about we educate for the future.
And I like Legos.
Do you guys? We'll keep on this. Do you guys have a night where you like a more open night, like similar to Hack Night or Gangplank, where everyone just kind of shows up and does their thing, kids and everybody?
What about children? Tell me about children.
Well, that's a great question, and as I mentioned earlier, we're currently in a transition from downtown Phoenix, the arts district, which there's all these great things. There's light rail, all kinds of cool things going on downtown, and but we're looking to make an impact with the children as well. So working with schools, putting together after-school programs, camps, all that fun stuff. We realize we can't really do that. And I mean, we can have like open mic nights and stuff and have mixers, but yeah, you open people up with alcohol, that's great. But what are you doing? What are you doing? Yeah, what are you doing for tomorrow? How are you creating a better landscape? So part of our decision to move downtown Glendale and to be working closely with the city, a large part of that has to do with the city, having the support of the city to quickly work with the schools, put together after-school programs. We're right next to the library, but we're in a really good part where we can't, downtown, we can't do that. I can't reach out to the school and be like, hey, well, it's a grungy, it's cool, it's industrial, it's grungy and all that, but I'm not going to gain the trust of, parents, for their kids to come after school to hang out for a few hours, they're not going to trust. They're not going to. I mean, we got transients walking in and out, and doing things to our building. That's just not encouraging the parents and the kids. So anyway,
We have dogs.
so anyway, I'm just saying we've made the shift with kids in mind specifically because our space just didn't.
That's very similar to what
If you've been to Co+Hoots, you know that Co+Hoots is in a kind of interesting area. We're right at the end of First Friday, and in the Garfield district, which is probably the most interesting of the historic districts in downtown Phoenix. But our building in general used to always get really tagged. It's a historic building. I mean, it's in the arts district. It's common. But since then, we've started working, our entire building, the gym included, has opened up their space for after-school activities for kids in the neighborhood. It's a great program that they do, and the kids just run around. So we've gotten to know those kids. We've reached out to them, and we're going to start doing like a mentoring program with them. I agree. I think kids need to know about the creative field, that you can grow up and be an independent and work for yourself and do all these awesome things. You don't have to work for a big company. If you want to, you can. But to expose them to the life of an entrepreneur is something that we need to do. So having these kids come into our space and just showing them that we have a space for this, that you can grow up and do these things, is what we're looking to do. And it's just going to be little baby steps. We're always looking for other ideas, and so if you do have an idea of a way that we can interact with kids, shoot it my way. Yeah.
Lego competition.
There you go. There's a lot of rules and stuff with that though.
Katie, is there anything else that we have up here? Anybody has a question?
Well,
Scott has a question.
Could you
one more question?
Could you just pack some mic down and tell us your website and your Twitter address?
Yes. All right. Your name, your website, and where we can find you on Twitter.
Jenny Poon, it's cohoots.com, and cahoots.com works too. The Twitter handle is cohootspHX. It's COHOOTS And my email is jenny@ecostudio, which is EEKOstudio.com.
Michael Witham, both website and Twitter handle is OSP Tempe, and email is michael@osptempe.com.
The web URL is unionworkspace.com on both Twitter and Facebook. Union Workspace is pretty easy to find.
Yes, my name is Jeff Rose. The name of the project is Jivemind. Website is www.jivemindmusic.com. Same with Twitter and Facebook.
I'm Fred Von Graf. The URL is launchspot.com, and my Twitter handle is fvongraf.
Gangplank, our URL is GOSI, and our Twitter handle is @Jivemind.
The URL and the Twitter handle for AZ Disruptors is AZ Disruptors.
Okay, that's it. Give me a big hand for everybody. Appreciate this.